philosophy of money. And this topic is how it affects everybody. And Scott, man, I'm excited because this is episode number 24. We've done a lot of cool stuff together. And I got to say, this has been a really fun series that we've done here. The Inner Compass started out as just an idea of jumping on and having some vision. And now we're sitting here at episode number 24. Like, this is super cool.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's something special to me, and I know it is as to you as well. Just because it helps me expand on a lot of different things that I'm thinking about, know you're thinking about, and things we've been through, and we know that it'll help other people because everyone's going through something, and sometimes you just need to hear it from a third party or somebody else because you need to see it through somebody else's eyes for it to make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think sometimes when the topics we went over all kinds of different topics, and a lot about mindset, identity, and all these different things. And I'll have to say that this topic today is really near and dear to me because of the things that we do in the space. But let's be honest, the philosophy is money is not the math of money. It's more the mindset, the belief, the emotions behind it, how you earn, how you spend, how you keep it, how you grow it. Like, that's really the philosophy of it and how you steward it. So, you've definitely been an advocate in this space. You do a lot of things in the financials of business and investing and stuff like that. So, what has the philosophy of money? Because you grew up kind of similar to me, in the trades and also in a place to where money wasn't always abundant. Like,
Mhm.
you learn what hard times were. You've learned what abundance looked like because of the people you've been surrounded with. So, what does it look like today? Like, what is your philosophy on money? What's the big premise here?
Well, most of the time, most people don't examine their relationship with money. You know, I had a book I was reading by David Bayer, and he said the easiest way to kind of figure out your relationship with money is you ask yourself a question. When I was young, money was, and then usually a lot of people say scarce because like when you're a kid and stuff, you don't have a lot of money. Like I cut grass, worked on cars, did all kinds of stuff like that, and grew up. Both my parents were products of the depression and stuff like that, and I see there was always kind of save, 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 which worked great, back in their generation because you save up, you bought things cash, you bought a house, you bought a car, you saved up and you bought it, or you bought the house, you get a mortgage, but you pay it off,
Mm-hmm.
and then you didn't have any of those, any debt and everything. But in today's environment, it's a much different thing because now you can use a lot. There's a lot more credit out there, and there's a lot more leverage out there. So it's really important that you make sure that you don't have a scarcity mindset when it comes to money, because
Yeah,
there
I
is
know for
plenty enough for
sure.
everyone. There's plenty enough for everyone.
Absolutely. You have to have this abundant mindset. But, one of the things that I've learned is it's usually never been a money problem, it's always been a mindset problem.
Hmm.
And you kind of touched on this. I want to go a little bit farther in on the topic was like generational curse or a
Hmm.
generational link. So
Hmm.
like, if you were raised in a very poor environment, that does seem to follow you
Hmm.
into your future self. We've talked a lot about the future self and how you portray that and the things that we do today to kind of manifest our destination. But it really does come down to it's a mindset thing. And you really do have to think about the mindset of that. Because I believe that I know I'm going to speak my experience. Most people don't have money problems. They think they have a problem. That was me for sure. And I had to break through that. And when I broke through that, I had to like physically look at the things I was doing and say, okay, well, if people believe that it's all about spreadsheets and in reality, it's about the belief system,
Hmm.
dude, like, why is someone making $250,000 and can be broke?
Mhm.
while some people have $65,000 a year and they're wealthy. What's the difference? And I know I'm speaking from personal experience here. Man, I've made three or $400,000 a year and been way more poor than when I made $65,000 a
Yeah.
year. What's the difference? And yeah, when you make more, you spend more, and they take more in taxes until you've learned a little bit more about money and how it works.
Yeah.
But what about for you?
Well, if your mindset is broken, your math doesn't really matter. And I've been through that where you go through that lifestyle creep where you think you need more things, you have more money, but it ends up if you're not balanced at the end of the day, and you haven't really thought it through that, hey, wait a minute, I'm just these more of these things aren't really doing anything for me. It's just more stuff. It's more worry. And then you have
Yeah.
to keep chasing that. And you get stuck in that loop where you're just chasing more money to buy more stuff, chasing more money, buy more stuff. And you haven't really done that inner work and kind of look like, wait a minute, I don't really need any of that stuff. I'm making more money. What I need to do is do things that are fulfill me. Like instead of buying things that I'm trying to fill the hole with, rather than do something that fulfills me, do something that's purposeful,
Yeah.
and then the money doesn't really matter so much, but your mindset shifts because you're doing something that you really genuinely care about.
Yeah, for sure. I've learned that money is emotional long before it's mathematical. And with that said, there was definitely a time that I had to really learn that my identity is what drives my money decisions. And I used to believe that my identity was tied around my position, my
Hmm.
job, my company, my business. And I was very closed minded at that point because my identity wasn't tied to this abundance mindset. It wasn't tied to helping more. It was just tied to, I'm just trying to help me. Like
Hmm.
that was my identity, as I'm just trying to be the best I can and just me, and not able to help anybody else. And I learned that here's the real truth that I missed. Money follows identity.
Hmm. Yeah, it definitely does. If you're in alignment with your purpose, and you're in line with what your true identity is, money's not a problem because you're doing what you truly are put here for, and you're
Mhm.
moving towards that. There's so many different identity types, like the saver, the spender, the survivor, the steward, the multiplier. But a lot of times people subconsciously feel that their worth is tied to money, but like you were saying, that it's tied to your position or tied to that. It's not really, that's not really who it is.
Mhm.
You know who you are, because you're much more than that. And when you break free of being tied to, this is who I am, from that job, or this as an entrepreneur, or this, then you're kind of broken free to where you have a better relationship with money.
Oh yeah. Well, something that comes to mind. You're talking about the saver, the spender, the survivor, the steward, the multiplier. Like all those are definitely different people with different identities.
Hmm.
Just like the person that says, "Hey, I'm bad with money." Well,
Yeah,
who told you that?
you did.
And yeah, you did. That's the thing, is like I always ask people, like, "Man, I can't do what you do." Who told you
Hey,
that?
yeah,
I mean, you can. There's
yeah,
nobody's. I bet nobody's actually said, "Scott, you can't do what you're doing."
yeah,
But
yeah.
Scott may have.
Yeah, I may have, and other people have too, but that was kind of the whole reason why I'm doing it.
Of course, of
That
course.
it gave me purpose.
Yes, it did. And now today, I would say that that's been a pretty gratifying journey, to
Yeah.
know that what you're doing now and how many impacts and how much life impact you have on other people. One of the things I want to say is, I know not everybody's heard this, but some people have, and they talk about this in certain books and podcasts and stuff like that. They say that they could remove all the money from the super wealthy people in the world, like completely remove it from their bank accounts and put it somewhere else, or they could lose all of it, and eventually that would all come back to them. Now, why do we think that is? Why would you think that would be true? And I believe it is true.
Well, it's because they're already living with the that uh, mindset of being abundant already. So that's why it just comes back to them. They're being they're being the person that already has it, rather than when this happens, I'll get this. It's,
Mhm.
well, I already have it. It's within me, so it's just gonna come,
Yeah.
and it just it'll show back up to them, and also, because the rest of the people don't have that mentality of being able to attract that kind of money, or attract that wealth, or all those kind of financial tools. They already have the wealthy people already have and know how it all works, so we'll come
Mhm.
back to them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's true because I think it was Donald Trump. I heard him say once that, it's impossible for Donald Trump to be a millionaire because he thinks, acts, and his identity is he's a billionaire.
Yeah.
So even if he does drop a decimal and becomes, a centimillionaire, at that point, like he's going to go back to a billion just because that's who he is. That's how he thinks. He's going to get back to that.
Yeah.
I know for me personally, you know, I've definitely been in the position to where I felt unworthy of wealth before. And I know that the young Eddie Austin had to kind of reframe himself. And I'm gonna share that personal story here, because at the end of the day, I was a young 12-year-old welder, working beside the men that were 60, 70 years old. And these guys were like the men that was in bib overalls, in denim, the men that built the world. Like,
Hmm.
they were the guys that just did some amazing stuff.
Hmm.
And some of those guys were afraid to retire because number one, they were the first fear. Because I would ask them, I'm like, guys, why don't you go retire? Like you talk about going deer hunting and going fishing and going on these big vacations. Why don't you do that now? And their number one thing was, well, first, I'm afraid to dip into my retirement account to go do these things. And then if I do retire to go do them, I'm afraid I'll outlive my money.
Mm.
And dude, that like that sunk in on my heart. Like it really did. At that moment, I was like, wow, I can't imagine like working my whole life to get to this point of the retirement age. Like this is the age I'm supposed to retire and go travel and can't, like because I have a fear that I'm going to outlive my money. And
Hmm.
then the other thing is like my parents, my dad told me here the other day, he said, son, if I had all those millions that I had when I was younger, it wouldn't make a difference today because I can hardly walk on the beach now without my legs hurting, my feet hurt, I get out of breath. Like his physical health isn't there. So
Oh.
I look at that, some people they do have a lot of money, but their physical health, maybe they're
Mhm.
behind a walker or, they have a cane, like they physically can't go climb the mountains that they dreamed of to fish at the stream, at the
Mhm.
top of, Yellowstone or wherever they dream to go. So for me, I started thinking like, at a very young age, at 12 years old, I'm like, hey, if that's these guys, it's like 70 years old. If they're thinking about they're going to outlive their retirement, I got to make sure I have enough.
Mhm.
And then I don't want to be on that other side of the coin to where I get rich or I get enough money that I no longer have that fear, but yet my health isn't there. So very early, I started thinking about, man, how do I do this? Because I'll be honest, I was able to retire from corporate America at 36, but that didn't come without a plan. And that also didn't come around without having a different identity, a different philosophy on the topic of money. Like I went through many different phases. So I got to say that was a personal story for me because I watched. my parents at a young age, and I've watched my parents at an older age. I've watched the people that I learned to weld from, get to a point that they're in fear of outliving their retirement. And I've been around those people, and that's one of the things that I really strive now is to be this financial educator, like to help teach the philosophy of this stuff.
Yeah, it's one of those things where fear keeps people stuck. And scarcity creates sabotage. Things like that. Where if you think scarcity, that keeps that fear going, and you know, purposeful money grows, idle money shrinks. So you have to keep
Oh,
it moving. Because you have to put it into things that are purposeful, because then it'll grow exponentially. And it's a tough thing, like for someone to be in their in the winter of their life, and to be there, and not have that fear in them. Imagine how frightening that is, that they're there and they don't feel that they can leave when they really can. um, because they just need to kind of know that they can. Like, it's the same thing, like you said, who told you that? I mean,
yeah.
you could sit down and do it, and maybe cut back and do less work or something. But I know welding is it's rough work, and it can be debilitating, and all those fumes and stuff over a long time. That's why you got to go for it sometimes. So you put your money to work, put it into some kind of purpose. That's where, like, in your money mindset, you have to have a purpose. And
Oh yeah. You touched on something I want to go back to because this is something I measured. So, I welded in barges, I've welded in tight confined spaces with low
yeah,
airflow. I've welded in big shops. I've welded with all different types of welding machines and, wire, stick,
yeah,
all and
stick,
TIG,
TIG,
all these different machines.
yeah,
And, grinding wheels, grinding
yeah,
is
yeah,
part of a big part of,
yeah. That's
anything you
half
do
of
in
it.
metal.
That's half of it.
Yeah, that's half of it. Well, when you're learning and you're not that good at it, a grinder make any welder look good.
Yeah, yeah. True, true,
You,
true.
you always made the joke of walking up that new welder and going, uh, "I'm going to get you a grinder for Christmas. That's what your Christmas
Yeah,
present's going to be." Because they did, you just look better once you grind those little dog legs off and stuff.
yeah, yeah.
But I want to say fear was a big thing for me because I'll be honest, man. You'd breathe in all the smoke. Sometimes it felt like you're breathing through cobwebs
Oh, yeah.
in your nose and in your lungs because of the smoke and the dust and everything else. And man, the black stuff that come out of your sinuses. And you're like, man, can my body take this? Like it
Yeah,
was a fear for me of dying early. Like
yeah.
if I continue in this career, could I pass on before I make it?
Mm,
Like, cause I wanted to have kids. I wanted to have a wife. And I was afraid that I would get those things. And then shortly after we had those things, that I could pass away,
mm,
because of being a welder at such a young age. I could get lung cancer from, either the welding wire or the smoke I was breathing, because there was certain guys that I welded with, man, they were diagnosed with, some lung cancer and some other types of
wow.
cancer. And it's like, man, that's a scare factor.
It
So
really is.
for me, it was like that line in the sand. It was like, okay, it's fear of passing away early because of my trade, and it was also fear of not having enough money to be able to live life when I have the health to live life. And I think that shame really creeped in on me. That
Mhm,
shame of, man, I don't know what side of the line I need to step into. And I will say that impulse, it can kill your compounding effect. The envy can kind of blind your own path, and it can confuse you, and it can keep your money at idle.
mhm.
And scarcity can really create some sabotage. I mean, let's be honest, man. I'm glad that I was fearless in some of my big bold steps because if I hadn't have been, I could still be doing what I'm doing. And I'm not by no means bragging by any means, but like that philosophy I had to like change in my mind, because that scarcity, I want to just leave everything in the bank. I didn't want to take any risk.
Hmm. Yeah,
But
that's when you got that cushion and stuff in there, you kind of start to block it out, and then you're almost living like you don't have any money, and then it kind of gets you more shameful if you're buying stuff, or if you give yourself something, or what have you. If you spend any of it, then it gets to be really, you know really the weight gets to be pretty heavy, when,
oh
especially
man,
when you're in fear, and it's one of those things that, that you really have to have. That, going back to, you got to have a purpose, and your mindset has to have a purpose. Like, hey, one of the best advice I ever had was from a good friend of mine, and he's a financial advisor. When I first started on the boats, he said, always have a time and a purpose with your money, whether it's um, retirement, that's 30-year money. You put it in, you pick a couple of funds, you let it sit, and you kind of check on it, monthly or annually, 6 months, quarterly. But if, the other money, hey, this is a 5-year investment money. I'm going to buy some real estate and save up and do this. Or this is vacation money. I'm going to put away $500 a month to do that. But that's been really helpful to me, kind of help
hmm
my mindset, because if you have a time and a purpose, then it's two simple things you can do. Like, okay, this money's sitting here. What's the time and the purpose for this? Is this my this is my emergency fund? Okay, that's going to stay there, so I always have 6 months, so
yeah,
that no matter what happens, I still got 6 months
of
to
course,
figure it out.
of course. And I think that you could probably use this saying right here, and this kind of ties into your philosophy that you're talking about. It's purposeful money grows, idle money shrinks.
Yeah.
And what do I mean by that? I mean, let's be honest. Let's put it in simple, real terms right now. As we know, we've seen government shutdowns. We've seen certain types of money stop flowing. And let's be honest, man, real hard felt here. I remember when my kids were much younger, when I would take $100 bill to the grocery store and the kids were throwing things in the cart, like the cart was much bigger.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I'm not talking to the physical size of the cart, but
Yeah.
the things in the cart was up to the top of the cart, and $100 bill would cover it.
Yeah.
But now, my daughter's 18 now, dude. $100 bill, you can see all the wires in the bottom of the cart. Like there's maybe 6 items in there.
That covers that little shelf on
Yeah, you put
the.
everything. They could shrink the cart
Got
down to
a
the shelf.
a couple dozen eggs,
Yeah,
some rice, and a little couple meat. Yeah, $100.
yeah. I mean, that's the truth. Like that.
Yeah.
That's like inflation in real terms. Like
Yes.
at the grocery store, go to Walmart. Remember what $100 bill bought you back then, and remember
Yeah.
what it buys you today. Like
Yeah.
it's a big difference.
It's a
So if
huge
you have to
amount.
think about that, like in what you were just talking about, like this money is set for this purpose,
Hmm.
and that money, that purposeful money, it grows, but the idle money shrinks, and that's
Yeah.
how it shrinks because it won't spend the same.
Yeah.
And
The
you
same
got to
money.
think about your money as like little green soldiers.
Yeah.
Like you can only work so hard, you can
Mhm.
only make so much, you can only save so much. So the money you've made, you got to make that stuff go to work, man.
Mhm.
Your money needs a job title. It
Yeah.
can't be unemployed.
Yeah. The money can be employed, unemployed. It's got to be working somewhere, because
Yeah.
if it's not moving, it's not doing anything. And the same thing with us. If you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of thing.
I was just thinking about that the other day. Um, I was thinking about a past life, and I was thinking about a lot of education around some of the things that I had done. And some things I've done so much in my life that it just comes to me like that experience, like riding a
Mhm.
bike, it never leaves me. But there's other things I've done in my life that I didn't do it very long, and I was thinking about, man, how did I used to do that? like I was sitting there thinking, how did I used to do that? I had forgot like the actual like inner workings of how something worked because I didn't do it long enough. So,
Mhm.
this has to be a daily practice. Everything we've talked about, this has to be like mindset, habit, philosophy. Like these are daily practicing items to keep your skills evolving. I think that there's also a God factor to this. It's faith and finance, right? Like you've got to think about these things as, God wanted you to be very abundant, to
Mhm.
be able to give to other people. So you got to have faith and you have to have finance. And I think they really go together.
Yeah, I think you have to be a steward of your money, because you have to be a steward. God wants you to be a steward of your money, to be a steward of your family, to kind of help, because that's your job. Especially, as parents, we have to be good stewards of our capital, put them to work, and to where it can take care of other people. It's not for things; it's for us to take care of other people and be a
That's it.
steward, a good steward of other people, and being a good example for other people to be good stewards of their money and stuff as well.
Yeah. As we've read in the Bible before, we're not supposed to bury what's been given to us to multiply and harbor it and save it. We're supposed to multiply that. And I really do feel that this is going to be controversial, but I really do feel that some people that have proven themselves to multiply and are good at multiplying, they're given more. I mean,
Mhm.
they really are. And if you think about some of these people that do lead spiritually, like David Green, the founder of Hobby Lobby, that man, gives away 50% of the earnings of Hobby
Wow.
Lobby. Like that's impressive. I
Yeah,
mean,
that's
really
pretty
impressive.
cool. Yeah.
And he's done very, very well with Hobby Lobby. But if you think about it, not one person in his organization works on Sunday because he's took
Mm,
a bold step in that. So
mm,
just really cool to think about. And I have to think about in our earlier conversation when we talk about removing wealth from everybody, that they would get it back. Well, I
mhm,
have to think about not everybody, but I think there's some people that would fit in that category that they've been trusted with things and they proved to the man upstairs that they could steward well and
mhm.
that they exercise spiritual stewardship and they physically look at biblical principles in business and they do good things with the money. Like they use what they've been given to be able to put that to good use.
Yeah, it really is. And you're saying that you just said, your passage that said, you don't, like, don't remember exactly what it said, but you're not buried with the things that should be multiplying. I think it made me think of a video I saw recently with Denzel Washington where he was saying, "You never see a Hertz pulling a U-Haul because
Yeah,
you
of
can't take it
course.
with you. You
You can't.
can't take it
You
with
really
you."
can't.
So
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
why you gotta put it out there working for you and being a good steward of it and bring it out to everyone. Make sure that they it can pass on to the other people in your journey.
yeah. You have to think about sometimes in life, taking a new shape can be very painful.
Hmm.
But you have to think about, and I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent for a second, but it's like God or Jesus, he's the potter, right? And we're the
Hmm.
clay. And sometimes we have to be put back in the forge, softened back up and reshaped into something way more beneficial to other people. And that not always can be a very easy thing for men to do, especially not women to do, like to take a new shape, to
Yeah.
become different. Like that can be really hard. But I will say that I have learned to love that process because I want to be more. Like
Hmm.
I truly do want to help more people. So
Yeah.
if that's what it takes to go through some things, to learn this philosophy of money idea, to learn how to steward, learn how to put biblical principles in, then I'm up. I'm all game, guys. Like
Hmm. Yeah.
I'm here to take a new
Bring
shape.
it.
And think about that for a minute because we did this on a previous episode too. When you stretch your arms out and you just feel better, like that feels good.
Oh yeah.
So let's talk about taking shape real quick. I heard this in a conference one time. Somebody had on stage had said, "Hey, I want you to physically close your eyes and I want you to imagine receiving like a large sum of money, like 10 million, $100 million. I want you to physically take shape of what it would look like if you did receive that much money." And people would close their eyes and like, what I want you to do is physically make a shape of what it would look like if you were to receive that money. It was surprising how many people, when I opened their
Yeah.
eyes and looked, they were like afraid it was going to hit them or something. Me, I'm over there going, let's
Take it all
go.
in.
I'm going to give a lot of that away. I'm going to give
Yeah.
a lot of that away to a lot of people. I'm
Yeah.
ready to receive. And I think that sometimes we do block that blessing of abundance, because I think there is people that want to invest with us. They want to
Mhm.
invest with you. They want to be a part of the mission, but somehow, some way, like when they approach us, sometimes maybe we're like this. We're like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't know if you're gonna get something on me or not, or
Yeah.
hit me with something. But we got to be like, hey, man, I'm
Yeah.
ready. I'm ready, and let's go.
Yeah. It's one of those things where, I know that I've always been good at giving all of my life, but receiving was a harder lesson for me to learn because
Yeah,
because I would always say if somebody wanted to give me something, no, it's okay. You don't need to do all that. But I've come to learn that over the older I get, that this person thought enough of me to, hey man, why don't you take this or buy, let me get this for you or whatever. Instead of me going, no, I don't need it. I should have always just said, hey, thank you. Take it gracefully, because it completes the cycle. And that person thought enough of me, it's the same, enough of me to get that for me, or bring something for me. It's the same thing. I think if anybody I know have known for a long time or whatever, if they show up my door right now and they've just randomly showed up, I haven't seen them maybe for 20 years. They show up, one, if they know where I live, that's fine. Maybe there's a problem there, but
yeah,
if they show up, it's like I got to let them in because they've thought enough of me to
Mhm.
come travel all this distance or take the time out of their life and say, hey, come on. So there's where you got to receive and to
Yeah,
complete the cycle. Because if you just give, it gets blocked.
yeah. I would recently helped a person out in their hometown a little bit, and I had said they were starting a new business, and I had said, "Hey, I'll help you out with that." And it wasn't money; it was more labor, just giving labor. Sometimes if you don't have money to give, there's
Mm-hmm.
other resources that God gave you,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe that's how to use your hands, like
Mm-hmm.
how to physically use your hand, or maybe you have some tools that you could lend somebody to help them in some way. It's not always about money.
Mm-hmm.
And for them, I said, "Hey, when you're ready to go do that, I'll help you."
Mm-hmm.
And I could tell because he didn't call me, and the opening date of the business was getting closer. I finally just walked in there and I said, "Hey, man, you're blocking my blessing." And he was like, "Whoa, Eddie, where is this coming from?" Because that was not normal to him for me to like speak up and say, "Hey, dude, you're blocking my blessing." And we sat down at a booth and he said, "What are you talking about? Like, I'm not near as spiritual as you, Eddie, but like, what are you talking about? I'm blocking your blessing." And I was like, I felt on my heart that I was supposed to help you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I seen the things that you're going through. I seen, what you're trying to do. Look, I've been there, man. I've been starting a business before. I know what that's like. And I also know what it was like to ask friends and they never came to help.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that as well. But what I'm trying to tell you is this friend is here, and this guy is saying, I want to help you. And I feel called to help you. Like, I have this on my heart that I want to help you. And like, no, I can't write you a check for hundreds of thousands of dollars. But what I can do is I can use my skills and experience and my physical labor, and I'll help you. Like, whatever you need, I'll help you get that project done. And I said, but what's happening right now is that was given to me to ask, hey, can I help you in some way? And you're not accepting that.
Mm-hmm.
You're blocking my blessing. And he's like, I don't exactly know what that means, but it sounds pretty important. And I'm not about to block your blessing. So this Saturday, I don't care if all you do is show up with your person. You don't need to even need to bring any tools. I got all the tools. I'll get the lumber, the screws, I'll get everything, but I'm not going to block your blessing any longer, Eddie. So let's go do that. And we built a deck that with a wheelchair ramp in the pouring rain, but we got that thing done. We're in time for the grand opening. So
Nice.
that's what I mean is like sometimes you do that exact thing that you said. There was sometimes somebody said, hey, why don't you let me get this for you?
Yeah.
And you're like, no, 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 man, I got it. You
Yeah.
don't know why that person felt compelled,
Yeah.
or maybe they feel like, man, I owe Scott the world. Like
Yeah.
Scott got me that job. Scott opened the door for me 100 times. I've never done it for him. Like somebody has that on their heart. They're like, hey, Scott, won't you let me get this for you?
Yeah, there was a personal story that I want to share there was a guy that I went to high school with, and he reached out to me on Facebook, and he said he was in like, and I saw he had a GoFundMe. Said, hey, I'm in kind of a bind or whatever. I said, I know. Or he said, hey, thank you for sending the money or whatever. And I said, I don't remember how much it was or whatever, just because I had it at the moment, and I just put it in there and sent it to him. And then it was a few years later. Um, he said, "Hey, he reached out to me again on social media. Said, hey, I want to send you the money back. I really appreciate you helped me out and everything." I said, "No, you don't. You don't need to. Just hey, go and help somebody else out that needs it." And it kind of went quiet, and I felt bad about that because I talked to my wife about it, and she said, "Yeah, you should have just taken the money because it meant a lot to him that he was giving you back the money."
That
And
made, yeah.
and I still think about that because I'm like, oh man, I should have. I know that probably slighted him, and he was in a tough spot, and it was a big thing for him to do that. And it's like I reached out to him recently. Hopefully, I'll get back in touch with him, and you
Yeah,
know,
hopefully, man, that I hope that
and
works out.
I did write a statement to him and say, hey, I'm sorry, I should have just taken the money back. I know it was a tough spot for you and everything, but you
Well,
know,
let's think about that for a minute. When you're in that tough position, you're very vulnerable,
yeah,
and you're embarrassed too. And
yeah,
then know that your high school friend, I believe you said,
yeah,
donated a sum of money. Like he probably felt really good to say, "Hey, Scott, I'm going to send you this money back." And
yeah.
when you were like, "Hey, you know, don't worry about it. Give it to
Yeah, just
somebody
give it
else."
to somebody else that needs it. And I thought I was doing, hey, keep it going is what I was
Sure.
thinking, but I should have just taken it and
Yeah.
given it on.
So I've had that similar thing happen, and I'm I guess maybe I was able to think through it. Maybe I'd asked my wife before I responded, but she said, I did get the money back from that person, and when I got it back, I immediately in the same day I got rid of it and I'd gifted it to somebody else because I thought, you know what, this
This
I
money.
never expected this to come back,
Yeah,
so I just took the money and just put it somewhere else and gave it to somebody else. Let
yeah,
that mission continue.
yeah. That's what I should have done because it would have, instead of me asking him to pay it forward, I should have just paid it forward because I didn't expect to get that money back.
Mhm.
And I don't, as a general rule, I don't loan money to anybody unless it's a
Sure.
business type thing. But if I do have it and somebody's in a tough spot, here, take it.
Yeah.
Because I don't need it back. It's going to help them. It's going to get them to another place. They're going to do something for somebody else. It's going to be good. So I don't think anything of it. I'll give, but loaning and lending is two different things. Lending in a business transaction, that's a different thing.
Oh, of course, of course.
Yeah,
I truly feel that money is a mirror,
yeah,
and your habits tell you the truth. I
definitely.
feel that I'll say it again. Money is a mirror, and your habits tell the truth.
Yeah, it definitely it'll mirror and show you exactly what your habits are,
Yeah,
for
money
sure.
mirrors discipline. money mirrors clarity, money mirrors emotion, maturity, and money mirrors identity, and money mirrors time. Because let's be honest, they print more money, but with the use of money and the right purpose, it can bring time and make your time multiply. Maybe not
Definitely.
multiply, but you can put money to work where you can hire other people. So money stewarded correctly, it can buy you your time back.
Yeah, and you can spend the time that you want with who you want.
And I do believe this. This is a quote anybody can take with them. I believe that your bank account is a reflection of your habits, not your potential.
Most definitely. You know, it's one of those things like, if you're in a bad spot or something like that, maybe you have that scarcity mindset, how would you change your psychology of money?
Oh yeah, that's so. Let's give some practices on that. What are some ways that you reframe that?
Well, like you were saying earlier, that the person he said, "Oh, I can't do what you do, Eddie. I'm bad with money." Instead of saying I'm bad with money, I'm learning to multiply or amplify my money.
Right there.
I'm not an investor. It's like, well, I'm a steward of what God gives me. I'm a steward of my money for my family. And it's just reframing and changing those words. And it goes along with what we were saying earlier. We don't let the money sit idle. We give it a job. Put all those little workers out there multiplying. Give it directives. Tie it
Absolutely.
into tie it into all the things in your purpose. Put it along that path and let it go.
Yeah, I mean, let your money be a success story. Invest it somewhere. I think one of the other ways is from shifting from that fear to clarity.
Hmm.
I think sometimes fear comes from the lack of understanding, the lack of education. You're only afraid because you don't know the outcome.
Hmm.
But what if you could know the outcome? What if somebody was able to explain it to you? What if somebody was able to educate you on it? So it would reduce the fear. Like, what is the fear of being, like my daughter is deathly afraid of being in the dark. And it's like, what are you afraid of? Because she can't see. She can't see what's in front of her. She can't see what's out there. Me, I was afraid of once being in the dark when I was very young and the fog at the same time. So what did I
Mm.
do? This guy went out in the fog and at night until he was no longer afraid of it. Because what did I do? I proved to myself that there's nothing out there. There's
Yeah.
nothing out there that can get me. I was the most scariest thing out there.
Hmm.
So what's going to happen?
Everything
For
out there.
there, you've been there.
Yeah, the things that are out there are more afraid of you than than you are of them.
Of
It's
course.
funny.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I do believe that fear does shrink money, but clarity, it can expand it. And I think clarity comes from education.
yeah. And if you have your clarity of purpose, the money will come. All you let out comes back to you. And getting back to being in the fog. If you're in the fog, how do you get clear? It's by educating yourself.
Mhm.
Learning more about how money works. Financial. Getting a financial education because it's not something that's taught in school so much.
No.
But there's
Mm-mm.
so much stuff out there on YouTube and everywhere else. And I know you and I are pretty passionate about teaching other people about finance and stuff like that. Just because you got to get yourself out of the fog.
One of the ways that helped me get out of my fog was surrounding myself around people that was way farther ahead than
Hmm.
me when it come to money and philosophy. And, I surrounded myself around people that were already successful. It's because success leaves clues. And I was like, man, what does these people do that they're not afraid of that? They're not afraid to invest in a business. They're not afraid to invest in an apartment building. What do they learn? So I would just listen to their conversations. I would soak up everything they did. So I joined kind of these inner circles or these people that were just game changers in the world to figure out, hey man, how do they think? One thing I would, we talked about journaling, and so I would for the listeners, I'd give you guys a practice for maybe the month of December. Well, actually, let's say, and if you're hearing this from here forward, think about there's a lot of anxiety around Christmas and Thanksgiving and stuff like that. You've got a
Hmm.
big meal that you're supplying to other people, and that costs money. And then you also have presents and everything else. So Christmas can be really high anxiety around money. But take these lessons that we've talked about and journal them. So what Scott said in the beginning, Scott, I'm gonna have you recite that. Like journal this. I'm bad with money. And Scott, what would you put beyond that? Because you do journaling as well.
Yeah, I would put, a lot of times I wouldn't put one reason, say I'm bad with money. No, I'm a good steward of money for my family, or something like that, or something else, that like another example of how that's not true.
Right.
You have one column of all the things that you're talking down about yourself, and then the next column, all the things that prove that that's not true, all the things that you've done in your life.
Yes, 100%. I always do mine where I write the first thing, I'm bad with money.
Hmm.
Well, then below that, I might actually put, I've fed my family. I've done these things. And I would
Yeah,
keep writing. And all those positive things below that kind of discredits the one above.
yeah, it washes it away. It
Mhm.
makes yourself realize that that's just not true. And then any other, another column you can have is just actions you can take to continue that process.
Yeah, 100%. I think we're towards the end of our time here, and I would say to anyone listening, you don't need to change, or you don't need more money. You need to change your life, and you need a new relationship with it. So maybe it's not, you don't need to make more money. You just need to change your current relationship with the money you have, and maybe learn how, once your philosophy shifts, the opportunities shift. When you step in identity, stewardship, and resources, you start moving towards you, and it starts moving towards you instead of away. So think about that. So once the philosophy shifts, your opportunities shift. And when you step into identity, stewardship, and purpose, resources start moving towards you instead of away from you. You become someone God can trust with more.
Yeah, most definitely. That your money mindset matters. And how you feel about money, and your emotions that you have towards money are very important, because your emotions cause your shift. It's the the thing about your future you is that it's tied to an emotion. The emotion you remember, you will be that person in that moment if you can see yourself in those emotions. If you can
Absolutely.
picture that, it can happen, because then it becomes real, because it becomes a part of your physical and mental being.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So, Scott, man, where can everybody find you?
You can. It's pretty easy. Invest with Scott Kidd. You can find both podcasts, the Inner Compass podcast and the Yacht Captain Investor podcast. All my social media. Feel free to reach out if you want to find out more about myself, Eddie Austin, and if you have any questions or you need help with something, please feel free to reach out. Love to help.
Absolutely. So to find me, go to Eddie Austin BEX on all platforms. You can go to eddieaustinbex.com. There's even a place where you can book a 15-minute call. And I'd love to hear that you heard this somewhere and you book that call. And let's move into, in closing here, let's do a lightning round, Scott, around the
Okay.
philosophy of money. So I'm going to fire some questions at you.
Okay.
Uh, Number one book that changed your mind about money.
Number one book that changed my mind about money. Okay, the money. The title escaping me now is something Babylon.
Richest Man in Babylon.
Yes.
That's a good
Richard Man
book.
of Babylon. Yeah, because it has a lot of religious passages that are
Yep.
compressed into this book that are all about money, and it's just through time, and it's all these are proven methods.
Number one quote that makes you think different every day.
Comparison is the thief of joy.
Oh, wow. Say that one more time.
Comparison is the thief of joy.
Man, that is so true. I
Theodore
mean, so
Roosevelt. Theodore Roosevelt.
I love that. I'm
Wow.
going to have to put that on my wall after this.
Yeah.
Last thing, what are you using today as a daily habit that reminds you to be abundant?
To be abundant. What am I using? Reminds me. I would say that's my breath work, as I get clear on what my purpose is every morning. And everything gets easier after that.
That's true, man. That's true. Well, I love it, man. We'll see you on the next one. It's such time well spent here. I
Most
can't believe
definitely.
it. We're here at episode number 24. We'll have to think about some kind of grand thing for 25. So we'll
Yeah.
see you on the next one.